Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Today is our special guest day, where we will hear from a friend of the ministry who will share their insight and stories on truth in this chaotic world. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy. Here we are, Guest Thursday again, and we have returning guests, special friends of ours, Tad and Monica Jones. I think last time I introduced you as a catch-up from the last time. Actually, Monica wasn't with us the original time. It was just you, wasn't it?
That's right. Oh, was she not?
No, it was just Tad, and we were talking mostly business stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's so good to have you on, Monica.
Yeah, thank you. But we had last week we had Monica, and she shared about your beautiful new home in Anna Marie Island in Florida by Tampa, right?
Yep.
How far does it take you to get to the airport?
Well, we have a new trick. We go in and out of Sarasota now.
Oh, you do?
Tampa's like an hour, 15 hour and a half.
Oh,
but
interesting.
yeah, the trick is, it was mostly COVID related, but you couldn't pick up a rent-a-car in one place and drop it off in another.
Right.
Uber drivers got real sketchy about trying to get out to the island. It's kind of remote. The whole system just kind of broke down. So we started going into Sarasota. We usually have to connect somewhere to get there, but it's 30 minutes from the island where we live. So it's a small town airport. We're small town people, so it kind of resonates with us.
Nice. You still have that bridge to go over though to get in.
No. Well, no.
No.
From Sarasota is like all land. Yeah, we have a tiny bridge, to get on the island.
Okay.
From San Maria,
Nice.
Yeah, I did a consulting for a company down in Sanibel Island.
Oh, that's nice.
And same deal. I was coming in kind of late at night, and they Ubers. We don't do that, and you got to rent a limo and all that, have it set up with the island deal, and it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, last time we talked about how God led you to actually have to come back early. What God is speaking to you about your son and his healing, and a couple things you said was one is that you were saying, Tad, that you were learning about the mind of Christ, and what is that? What does that look like? And when you say that, what does that mean? You're learning, and by the way, we all are in a learning mode.
Sure.
It says we have the mind of Christ, but we don't completely have the mind of Christ. So, what does that mean?
So back to kind of conversations that we've had with Blake regarding the chaos of the world, and the retreat I alluded to that we've gone through with you, Rich, was on adversity in the world, and again, like a lot of kids or a lot of adults for that matter, we all struggle when we see unrighteousness or these things in the world, and so we dove into what it means to just deal with people that are difficult. And so you contrast the verses where, Peter's talking to Jesus and he says, how many times do I have to put up with this? Yeah. And like 7 times. And Jesus like 70 times 7. And Blake's like, I'm not receiving that. I'm not putting up with these people. So you contrast that against the verses in Mark 10 and Luke 10, or I'm sorry, Matthew 10 and Luke 10, where Jesus is talking to the disciples and he says, take this word and go out to these communities, and basically, if they don't receive it, shake the dust from your feet and move on. And so Blake and I really got into the conversation about how to deal with the world. It's just, it's in a state of entropy, like we learned from you, and people are difficult. And that's when I just, if you search yourself and you look for that one time when someone was being so ridiculous and off the charts that you actually clicked and looked at them and said, that person is really struggling with something. In other words, you pivoted from a self view, a victimhood view, to a caring for someone else. In other words, they're acting out or disrespecting or being difficult with you because they're actually struggling with something. That's when the switch happens. That's when that must be what Christ was saying when he said, turn your cheek. I mean, this person's struggling, turn your cheek. And by the way, but you don't have to put up with it. I mean, shake the dust from your feet and move on. But by the same token, that responding to that person aggressively, and adding more adversity to them is not going to help them, and it's certainly not going to help you.
Yeah.
You're living in bondage when you live with, we've learned, living in unforgiveness and those kind of things. So, be angry, just, you're a breathing person, human being. You know what righteousness and unrighteousness is. It's okay to identify and react and be discouraged by or angry for a minute about what's unrighteous, but you got to shake the dust from your feet. You got to move on. You can't carry that.
Right.
And those are the conversations I've had with Blake. And then it just came to me as we were walking through them. It's like that's what Christ we meant, and that's what it means to have the mind of Christ. It's like He doesn't let the afflictions or the sadness or the sorrow or the unrighteousness of somebody else get to Him. He knows who His Father is. He knows what the Father's intentions are, and it turns to compassion. It's like it's the exact opposite of response of what our flesh wants to do, which is to fight back or carry the burden either way. It's like, the mind of Christ is one where you see that distortion, that adversity, and you see compassion for that person.
Right.
It's just something you just sit and meditate on that for a while. It goes really deep.
Yeah. And is it? I know one thing that you mentioned that you're learning, and God's having you grow in the aspect of kindness, which is a fruit of the Spirit. So you can't go do it yourself.
That's
but what is that? As He's spoken that to you, how have you received that, and how are you and Monica processing that, particularly as it relates to you two, and then for your son and your family?
Well, this is one of my biggest character flaws is reacting not out of kindness. And Monica's, someone said to me years ago through the business consultant like yourself, Rich, it said, Monica absorbs your stress. Oh, I was like, just take the knife out of my heart. And I realized I carry work home and I express myself, and she's sitting there taking the heat. Well, what I've learned recently is that our kids, and specifically Blake, was taking on that stress.
Yeah.
And so it's caused me to reflect on those gifts of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. And just kindness and gentleness are really the ones where I've just got to pause and just think, yeah, this is the fruit of the Spirit. What you've helped me out with too is just recognizing that you can't just, God, give me more kindness, or I'll just be kinder.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna be kinder. It's like we have to be in a position to receive the spiritual gift.
Yeah.
And so of surrender first of all, and just dying to the flesh. In my case, is dying to the flesh of objective and performance and achievement and lack of order. I mean, when things don't go in order, then I get upset, and that's my desire. That's my selfish desire. And so when things don't go right, to be able to just take a step back and just let it go is the first step to realizing the fruit of the Spirit in kindness. And so I have a part, and that's surrender. It's always usually surrender, die to the flesh, and then God delivers the gift.
Yeah, and I know it's as it's related to Blake. One thing that he did say to you is that he felt your expectation.
Yeah.
And that was a burden to him. Talk a little bit about that, which relates to kindness and release. You said release, and remember God's nature. It isn't just a little piece of it. It involves a lot of stuff.
It's heartbreaking to think about that. When you're performance minded, you take all this burden on yourself, and to know I struggle with it, to see that I just basically afflicted him with it was really hard to process. So that's again back to what's the Father's expectation of us. It's nothing but to surrender to Him and receive His love, accept Him. And so why do we take expectation on ourselves, and then even worse, why do we pass it on to other people? It's hard when you're in a business and you have to get things in order. You have to have expectation. We can't be lazy. We need to process things. But it's a balance of turning that into a burden, like you said. That was the word I actually used, or Blake used with us. He said, I feel like such a burden. It's like, I'm sorry that I put that burden on you through expectation and things like that. So we're going through a healing process for sure, but if you just reflect back to what the Father shows us, it's like that's not the mind of Christ. Again, that's our fleshly mind getting in the way about, to be accepted or to be, we have to perform a certain way. And so, at this stage of life, it's amazing, and I'm just still working on the basics.
Yeah.
I love, even as you share that though, hearing, you're talking about the mind of Christ and how he's growing you right now in kindness. And I don't know whether you heard yourself say this before or not, but you were talking about how Jesus showed compassion and healing and that sort of thing. And do you know, if you go back and look in the Bible at all of the different times that he actually did healings, the driving force behind almost all of them, it'll say that Jesus had compassion. And so even as you're looking at what's going on with Blake, I love that you're praying into promises of healing for Blake.
Amen.
He's already spoken that, and God is growing in you compassion.
Yes.
That's
Those
true.
things are linked.
That's true.
Those things are linked, and you've said it without even realizing you've said it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's
I like
true.
that.
Yeah. And then last time, Monica, you said that one thing that you asked him, do you feel that you can tell us anything? Which is kind of a big deal, because most of the time, almost any environment, our answer is, not really, because we're always guarded, with it. But he said, I do. So you've created that environment, and that you said that that's really that is the mind of Christ toward us. So talk about those two elements of it. Is how do you see that being God speaking that to us personally? Do you understand that you can say anything to me, how important that is, and then how does that play into you creating that for Blake? So talk a little bit about that thought of even you asking that question and starting to understand the dynamic of that.
So, I guess initially the reason why I asked him that is because he entrusted us with the biggest secret he's ever had. And our initial response was because God prepared our hearts. He was renewing our minds. We were trusting who he was. And so in turn, we could then turn around and trust him in this situation, no matter what it was that Blake was going to tell us. And so in that moment, we responded the way that Christ wanted us to respond, and it was because he had renewed our minds. But it took time. It took a long time for Tad and I to get to this place so that we could respond the way Blake felt safe in responding to us. I mean, it wasn't overnight. And when Tad was talking about his kindness and me absorbing stress, that is my personality. I do absorb that in any given situation, and I take it on. But also, I came from a family where we always scooted things under the rug. We would not address problems at all. It is so hard for me to deal with conflict and to address it. And I can't tell you how many times there might be a situation with Tad and me, and I will just leave, not wanting to talk about it, and God says, go back in there and process it. And I just, it's, even to this day, it doesn't come natural for me.
Yeah.
But it's that trusting and just taking those baby steps, and we've taken the baby steps over the years to trust who God says he is. And I think we passed one of the biggest tests the other day when we were given that trust. Blake shared with us that secret, and we just embraced him. We just loved him. And in that moment, I had more compassion for him than I ever had before. And I thought, God, you're teaching me that unconditional love. And in that moment, I think I got it, because nowhere, I don't think either one of us would have ever started lecturing Blake. It just was a natural thing to just say, it's okay. We're going to get through this. And so that would not have happened a few years ago.
Right. Yeah. And as you
Beautiful.
think of, let's talk about a couple elements of that. But as you think of that, just as it relates to your ability to do that with Christ, why is that so important? That's his heart toward us, is come with me and share everything, and you can feel safe about that. Why would that be important just for all of we believers to really understand that, how beautiful that is?
Because we live in a fallen world. We're going to have challenges all the time, and how we deal with them is how we're going to move forward in our relationship with him. How we're going to overcome things a lot quicker is if we get these valuable lessons now, and knowing that we can trust him in everything, no matter what. And by having these little tests here and there to show us, we are maturing and we are growing, and then we can pass that knowledge on to others and share with them. Look, this is what I've walked through. These are the struggles I've had, and this is what God has done in those situations. I can trust him now. You can trust him now. So it's a journey that we have with everybody, and I think it's passing those little tests along the way so that we know we could trust him with anything else that comes our way.
Right.
As we talk about this, we're really in relationship 101 class here. It's our relationship with the Father, it's our relationship with Blake, it's our relationship with each other. If you remember at home church, I asked for prayer about unity, that Monica and I are on the same page, because I mean, look at this too. I mean, what is it? They're going on 35 years now. It's like she wants to brush things under the carpet, and I want to hit them head on. How are you supposed to have works?
Yes.
It's hard, and so
And you wanna not only hit them on, you wanna blast them.
yeah. And I mean, that's oil and water kind of really, personality types.
Yeah.
And man, sorting it out is part of the walk. And so there's relationships going up to the Father, going across to each other, and with our kids, and then take that to the world. It's like we're still learning about how important it is to focus on all those, and just what the Father teaches us about all those things. Start with his relationship, and then what unconditional love looks like. That there is no expectation. All these things now take him out to your other relationships.
Right, yeah, and out of that, beginning point, which he said, come and share with me what is truly on your heart, and he said there is no condemnation. I want to receive it, because I already, by the way, interesting enough, he says, I already know this. I already know about it. But then the other element of it is, and you can share your heart toward Blake, is that you gave him safety. He could share, he did, and you even asked him, do you feel like you can continue to do that? Because you needed him to realize this is a beginning, not the end. And he said, yeah, I do. That's a magnificent opportunity that he actually does believe that, which now means, okay, now we can talk, we can process. Okay, now, think about God, who says, okay, now that we understand that, first of all, what is your heart now that he says, I'm at this spot that is difficult for me. He's troubled. He's heavy. What's your heart for him from this point forward? What is it that you would like for him?
For Blake?
Yeah, for Blake.
To thrive.
Yeah, thrive.
And then take what he's going to learn from this and share it.
Yeah.
And learn to deal with the adversity of the world, and just say, this is not getting to me, because I know my parents love me, and my parents believe in me, and I know the Father in heaven believes in me.
Yeah.
And so he's becomes impervious. He's a big fan of Marvel movies, superheroes, and we love to watch them together. And it's like, maybe I'll take this back to him. It's like, Blake, you're a superhero. When you got God inside of you and you understand what it means to have the mind of Christ, you're a superhero.
Yeah.
No one can touch you.
It boils down, I think, for him is renew his mind. His whole digestive issues, it's his mind. We can chase doctors, chase nutrition, but in the end, he has to renew his mind. Proverbs, is it 3, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, acknowledge him in all your ways, and he will make your path straight.
Yeah.
And that is our goal and our job, to help walk him through that, and to trust us enough to give him little nuggets. I mean, it's hard with Blake to sit him down and do some devotions or do some abiding, but as we continue to just give him little nuggets, he's hearing it, because we're seeing the growth with him. And it's just, we got to figure out how to message it to him and who he is, and how he's going to process it. And it's slow. We want it to pick up, because we know we have the answer, we know we have the truth, but it's in his timing, and that's where we have to be patient. And we thought we would be further along right now than we are.
Yeah.
But it's back to trusting him. Timing, you got to get timing out of it. You want to hurry God along, and that was one of those things about stopping the power. If we're on this timeline and we think God is not hurrying along, we're going to then make a mistake, and we're going to step in.
That's a good word, Monica, because what I'm remembering when Rachel decided to go to Spain after college, and she was, her friends are going to law school, med school, and doing all this, and she wanted to go to Spain. And the Holy Spirit must have given this to me. I just processed it, Rachel, life's not a race. do you have joy? Are you happy? Are you a blessing to others? A few things like that. And it paid dividends. She came home more mature, more self-confident. Now with Blake, I've now remember what you said to Rachel. It's like, remember, life's not a race. We'd rather have well-balanced relationships and have him thriving than having him doing XYZ by some certain date. So
that's right, because if we measure ourselves against the world, and he should have already graduated by now, according to the world standards, he's got a ways to go. And if we looked at that and got anxious about it and then treated Blake according to those standards, it wouldn't be good.
Standards of the world.
Yeah.
Well, your heart is, and this is what, as you say, God wants us to have freedom, complete safety to share, which Blake did. But you already know your heart is, well, okay, you're here, but I love you too much to just leave you there. Is I'm going to walk with you into the healing, into the thriving, because I know what God wants, which is a covenant life. I want to bless you to make you a blessing. It's absolute. So that your heart is, well, I want to help you walk into that so that you actually experience it. Not that, okay, it's nice that you feel safe to share. I don't want you to stay there. I want you to go to healing. And so God's desire is, I want it to be safe, but I love you too much to leave you there, is come with me and I'll heal you. Which is what you got to help him understand is, you'll get there. You can get there, and you want to get there. That's your heart, so that it's a both and. It's yes, feel safe, but I'm not going to leave you there in the difficulty. I want to heal you to the the beautiful thing, and that's what I know. That's what your heart is. So how are you going to approach that with? Well, we know where God wants him to go. How do you receive your role in that?
Affirmations. One of the things Monica and I talked about was just holding him, just speaking affirmations, just drown him in affirmations. Everything is, I tend to focus on this, and turns out somewhat negative sometimes, and it's just being positive and affirming him, because he's believed lies for so long. So that's one thing we know we're going to focus on in every conversation. We believe in you, Blake. I believe in you.
But it's also going to take abiding for us to hear from the Lord. Okay, what next?
Yeah.
What next? And being diligent about that, because he knows Blake so much more than we do, loves him so much more than we do. And he knows what Blake is going to receive and what he's not going to receive in any given moment. And so it's going to require us to be disciplined to really hear in detail, specifically, can I talk to him about that? He might say no. How about this? And just pose questions to the Lord and let him process it with us to know, okay, what next? What about this week? What do we do this week? And so it's going to require some real time and checking in with each other.
Right. How do you approach that with, particularly we parents, it's like, well, I'm going to move you along this plan.
That's right.
Your heart is right, but I need to help you, and you just said it is, well, actually, you got to check in and let him guide you, and resist that movement of, but we'd like to go faster, or couldn't we do this, or wouldn't this be helpful? And we got to keep remembering that he knows more than we do.
I have an example.
Yeah.
So we're going through the process of trying to sign another lease for him at school, and so you're committing to a year's worth of rent, and we're not real sure about things. And we had a conversation one night, and I'm trying to say, I'm not sure this makes sense. You might not want to do this. So I get her on this one page of like, we're not going to do it. My quiet time the next day was get his commitment and let him manage the process of signing the lease. So she came in and talked to me in the morning, and 2-3 steps going towards this. Well, we may not just sign this lease. We need to let it go and figure something else out. And I'm like, hang on, I just got new direction.
I got new instructions from headquarters.
Yeah, we're supposed to let him follow the process. Just make sure you get commitment. And it's funny, we just did that before we came here today. I just said, I just need to hear you're committed to this. Finish the school. And he says, yeah, I am. Should I take you at your word? let's go. You take care of it, and we're on board. So I did like a 12-hour 180.
Yeah. How did that come about? How, because you're obviously you always have a heart to hear, but yeah, I think it's this way. But how did he shift you? Really, how did that happen that you received it?
The night before, it was really just typical. How do you operate in the world, and this is a risk, manage your risk, and reduce this, chance for failure or whatever. The way it happened was just it's quieting myself. The next morning, I would just sit down with a Bible journal, didn't open either one of them. I just sat there, and God just gave it to me. Because that was what was on my heart. I wasn't even praying anything specifically. It's just like, the situation with Blake, what do we do with it? It's simple as that. And it was clear. It's just like he needs to commit, and then he needs to follow through on it himself. We've turned into helicopter parents through this whole thing, so we got to fight that.
Yeah, we really
How did you receive that to say, yeah, you know what, I confirm that? How did you do that?
I was at peace and relieved. I knew, okay, God, you heard from the Lord. I trusted that in that moment because we had to make a decision, and I was good with it. I was comfortable with it.
And you felt peace about that.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty cool how God says, well, actually, let me tell you this.
And you typically, historically, it's like press ahead with a plan. And if you don't check in, you just more stress. And so, that's a good success story of just pausing, quieting yourself, and listening.
Yeah. And as we're talking about God's will, why did you trust when He just said, well, here, I have a new thought for you. You weren't even, in a sense, should I? It was just you were willing. And He said, I actually have a new thought for you. Why did you trust that? Instead of, well, yeah, but is that me? Or am I doing it myself?
Well, part of it might be just, again, surrender. It's like, look, I'm not making any progress here. In other words, I surrender. It's like I'm more open to receive new direction once I see that my ways aren't working.
Yeah. Yeah, but he said something, and you could have. A lot of people say, well, maybe that was just me, and you didn't receive it. Why would you just say, you know what, I received that?
Over time, he's always right, and me not so much.
And you've just learned that relationship has grown, and you've learned to trust him and hear him. It takes practice and commitment and spending time with him to get to that place where I know I heard you. That was you.
That's right.
Or sometimes you fight it. I mean, this is maybe what you're fishing for. Is like sometimes like I don't believe that. I don't believe it. No, we're gonna do this, and you just know in your spirit. You just know that I'm not at peace. I must be going down the wrong road.
Right.
So it's not always automatic like that. Sometimes you're like I don't know that I believe that, and so you got to go back. You got to trust. You got to work through the process until you're at peace. You'll identify it by it's the right answer because you'll be at peace.
Yeah, and you are illustrating that the burden is on him, not you, and that even though I think we should do this, he says, well, if I need to correct you, I will, and he did, and you said, okay, no problem, I got it, I see it. You weren't, should I? It was just, well, I'm going to correct you because you trust that. And he speaks, you understand it. When he said it, it's like, okay, hey honey, what do you think? Yep, I confirm. And you did it, and God said, you see how well it works when you follow me?
Yeah, we're learning.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's what we're trying to encourage everybody is, even when you're learning it, is to, when you're hearing stuff, trust it, process it. If he wants to alter it, he will. And you really live in that freedom of knowing that, well, he'll get you there. And he did. That's beautiful.
That heart posture, that surrender is the key part too. When your heart is postured correctly in front of him, even if you take a misstep, he can redirect it so easily,
Yeah.
And by the way, it tells you, one thing that happened even this morning then is that it tells you a little bit further about Blake's, in a sense, strength. Yeah, I know he went through this episode, but he's saying, no, I'm committed. That's a big deal.
It is. Actually, we said that driving over here. It says, let's pause on that thought. That's a victory. That's celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
That's
he verbally committed.
And that tells you here's where it's headed. And God said, actually, he needs to be the one to say that,
Exactly.
not you.
Exactly.
That the whole thing is just remarkable. It's so beautiful, and so it's very, very exciting, and I'm excited. I believe that there's big breakthrough coming this summer. I think for you personally, but for him, and there's something about what's going to happen that's going to be pretty remarkable. That's a needed thing as to why God had you stay home and be available, to him, and create the safety that he just said, I feel that safety. How precious is that?
I think that was the key. You've seen our life, Rich, over recent years. We've busied ourselves, and we're doing retreats, going to retreats is part of it. And Blake watches that and sees he's felt like second fiddle, second important. And so, as you know, our business, I'm not involved in the day-to-day of the business, and so we busied ourselves doing other things. And the fact that we came home, shortened our vacation, and then canceled the trip, to Croatia, he sees those things as our commitment to him, and so
Showing him that he's valued.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Well, when I was on the phone to him in Florida and I could hear the stress in his voice, I said, Blake, do you want us to come home? He said yes. And then a little while later he said to me, Mom, you have no idea what that means to me.
That's what
Oh.
So
that's
it was
what we
huge.
missed over the years. Probably is being busy and not just feeding into him as much as we probably should have.
Well, Father, we lift up Blake, and this is remarkable. Everything about it is remarkable, and we know you're at work, and just even this little thing today is evidence that you know what you're doing. You're leading him to healthiness, and I pray that he would receive it, and that this summer would be a momentous time of him moving into that healing, and you finishing it, and Ted and Monica just walking with you to be sheepdogs to you, serving Blake. And so we look forward to that, and we're excited about that. Thank you so much for sharing, you guys, this great story. It's just an amazing. It's so overwhelming. I'm almost speechless about it. So Kathy, we're just excited about them, and we'll have you back in next fall, and take
give you an
take the next episode of it.
And thanks for being so transparent too, because I am sure there's so many people listening that it's encouraging to know here you guys are people who love Jesus, are abiding and everything else, yet God is still working and forming you guys, and in doing that, bringing healing to your children too. And I think all of us can just take comfort in that God just continues to work on each of us, and is just really walking all of us into his best. So thanks for being transparent and authentic in that. So.
Yes.
And Kathy, we will see you tomorrow.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Okay, see you soon.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.